One of the things that I noticed when I was looking over the covered materials categories list for California's SB 54,
Mm-hmm.
which was recently updated in January 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was shocked, I say, that aseptic packaging and then multi-material cartons, which gabletop,
Right.
that it was specifically gabletop, aseptic packaging and gabletop cartons were not identified as recyclable. And one of the reasons why I was shocked about it is Tetra Pak, you know, just the largest packaging company in the world, has been talking about the recyclability of their aseptic cartons for decades. I mean, you guys are often featured speakers
Yep.
at a
Yep.
lot of sustainable packaging events because of all the environmental advancements that you've done over the decades. And I know that even though aseptic cartons are still multi-material, that you're doing a lot of work to minimize the um, the amount of the different material in there while still providing the necessary barrier that aseptic packaging, specifically for foods and beverages, need.
Right.
So could you tell me, I'm sure you guys have been involved in the conversations with California, Cal Recycle. Uh, how did that happen? Why isn't it identified as recyclable?
So basically, the cover material list that goes with SB 54 feeds from the study that was done for SB 343, which was the study to determine the truth in labeling for packaging as it related to recycling.
Okay.
And so the 343 study used two thresholds or two measures. One was household access to recycling of a product. The other was a threshold of the number of communities where the product, number of community programs where the product feeds into MRFs and is sorted into a defined grade.
Right.
So when it comes to the household access, the threshold was 60%, and we met the threshold. So in the final draft study, it's not a draft anymore. The final study, we achieved, I think, 72 or 73% against a threshold of 60.
Okay.
When it came to sortation, there are some, we don't agree with the methodology that was used by Cal Recycle, specifically in that. So we were given their study showed that we had 47% in the sortation category against a threshold of 60.
Okay.
So to answer your kind of question simply, the reason we aren't on the CMC list right now is because we're below on one and above on another. And so we provided a ton of information to Cal Recycle because when it came to the sortation, cartons are a small volume commodity. They don't just go into their own grade, they also go into mixed paper. And we were given virtually no credit for anything that was going into mixed paper, sorted into mixed paper to be recycled. It's a methodology thing. It's a much longer discussion. We provided everything, but the methodology they chose to go with, they kept. They took all the way through. Study has been now finalized. And the study says, actually, this is not to deem recyclability. This is to show a space and time of what happened. However, those designations feed into 54.
Okay.
And so the reason you see that aseptic and gabletop cartons don't yet reach that on the CMC list for 54 is because they didn't reach it on the truth in labeling study for 343.
So what is Tetra Pak doing to change that?
Perfect. No, it's great. So there's a couple of things. So there's some legislative things that we have begun to look into because, so that's going to be something that there could be some chances to, from a legislative standpoint, to maybe create a bill that could provide some fixes. And I can't speak to all the specifics on that. The second thing is what the SB 54 allows for is a designation of a trending towards recycling. So this is where we can go to Cal Recycle with additional information on where things stand. And so when you ask about what we're doing, we never stopped doing the job that we've been doing. So we never stopped working with MRFs to increase the ability to sort and accept cartons, communities to increase that cartons become or are considered recyclable or accepted in the list. And then third, and most importantly, we actually are investing in a recycler in California to convert cartons into new products. So from a trending standpoint, we're doing all the things that we would expect Cal Recycle would look at as you're on the path. If you achieve the trending towards recycling, you actually are able to keep that logo on the package and you're then on the list, the CMC list you're talking about.
Okay.
Then you would be, so there's a process. So this process is, I think we have a few months that we have to put the information together, present it to Cal Recycle. Cal Recycle will then review.
Okay. And there's time for this because the Cal Recycle EPR law isn't in effect yet.
And
Is that
it's
correct?
correct. So the 343, even the based on the study, the way 343 was written, it's 18 months from the date of publication of the final report. So even the need to potentially remove the logo, and I say potentially because we believe that we'll be able to get through this, wouldn't be until October of 2026.
Okay.
And then the law doesn't come into effect until after that as well. So there's time.
Okay.
There's absolutely, and the list can be updated. So this is the other reason. So I think Cal Recycle has to publish an updated list once a year, but they can change it whenever if they have new information that allows them to change information.
Okay. And it's all still being put together. I understand that, but the hope would be that they don't wait to change the eco-modulation fees for the companies once that covered materials categories list is updated. Like you wouldn't want to have to pay for something for like 11 months of a year just because somebody hasn't updated a
No,
list.
totally. There's no question. And that's
Right.
why I think they
Okay.
have the ability to do it when
Yeah.
I don't remember what the law says, but it's something like the director of Cal Recycle has the ability to make the change upon receipt of information and a decision being made. And I think that's kind of whenever.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for explaining it. And I just have to say, I hope, and you're on the Carton Council as well, correct?
Yes.
So you're able to talk this not only for Tetra Pak aseptic packaging, but also for the gabletop
Yeah, and
cartons.
remember, Tetra Pak also we have Gabletop as part of our portfolio as well. It's not just the aseptic cartons; it's both that and Gabletop. So yes, and we are Tetra Pak, as are the other member companies, are who are part of Carton Council. It's all aligned. It's not like Carton Council's going out and fighting one battle and we're fighting another. It's all being fought collectively. But the other thing to add to this too is just again, it doesn't stop our mission. So what you were saying earlier about what Tetra Pak does, we continue to do it. So we can do the reason we still believe in that recycling facility in California. We believe it'll be great for the cartons that are coming into California being used and can eventually be sent to be recycled. We'll continue to do that, so that doesn't really change it. It's a hurdle we have to get over.
Okay, excellent. Well, thanks for explaining it. And I wish you all the success because I am a huge proponent of aseptic packaging, especially for beyond just the material issues of sustainability. The shelf life
Yeah.
extension and the minimizing the food waste right there should give you an
Well,
exception.
Can I
Exception,
continue and
whatever.
say some things?
Definitely.
So, it's very funny. We've been talking about this. The truth is, the purpose of the packaging is to protect what's in it, to deliver a product to the consumer that is nutritious, safe, healthy, the whole thing. And to your point, so if we're here to protect food and make it safe, the package, when you look at the whole life cycle of that package, it does a great thing. You fill it with something. It can sit at room temperature for 8 months, some cases more. And when you crack it open, it's as healthy as it was the day it was, or you safe, healthy, all those things. So to your point, you don't want to create a situation where, you make a change for one reason and then you create potentially another issue. If all of a sudden you can't have packages that hold something for 8 months, do you have to have more refrigeration, which means more electricity? And now you get into a discussion of, well, are we actually reducing greenhouse gas emissions or increasing? I mean, increasing or reducing, what are you trying to achieve overall?
Right, right.
And we know the recycling is a challenge, but that's why we've been committed to working on it. We continue to do it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. I am just going to say a personal note here. because I am a huge fan of aseptic packaging, like I already admitted, that my husband was going to the grocery store for whatever reason I wasn't able to go with him. We usually shop together, which is, don't get me going on that one, but because we have different shopping styles and
That's all right.
anyway, so he was going to the store, and I've gotten into the habit, especially in Chicago winters, of having soup for lunch.
Yeah.
And I like to make my own soup because there's a lot of calories and a lot of other things in prepared soup that I prefer not to have.
Yeah.
So he goes to the store and he knows I wanted chicken broth, but I said only buy the aseptic carton.
Yep.
He gets to the store and he's like, "What's an aseptic carton?" So I forget, I was probably in a work call or something. He texted me, I didn't get back to him. So he asks the people in the store, and they had no idea what an aseptic carton was. It's like, okay, take the word aseptic out of it. Carton.
No,
Yeah.
it's true.
Hello.
It's funny you say that because, I still to this day, and this is a Tetra Pak specific, but, people still say, you make what? We make aseptic cartons. Like the juice box. Oh, so you make the juice? No, we make the packaging and we make the processing equipment and other things too. The recognition of it still isn't there. People just don't necessarily get it, and they don't get what it does.
Okay, not to tell you guys what to do, but we should change that.
No, believe me, we get it.
Because one of the sessions that I sat in on yesterday was the consumer one, which was fantastic. So many key insights in that one. But the one that was probably the most shocking to me was that consumers, mostly a little bit higher percentage for Gen Z than consumers in general, but 69% of consumers are now looking at the product packaging more from a life cycle point of view than just the end of life point of view, which is definitely what needed to happen.
Oh, yeah.
But wow, talk about all the opportunities for brand owners to change their messaging.
It's true. I mean, Lisa, it's funny. We have, because I work in this space and then I work in the recycling space a lot, it's very interesting. It's very easy for everybody to get focused on the recycling piece because you do it. You actually take your
participate.
you bingo.
Yep.
See it.
So you see it, you touch it, you put it in your bin, your pin gets picked up. When it doesn't get picked up, you get upset, all that stuff. But so it's good to hear that people are looking at the other parts because they really haven't. And when we were talking about the food waste piece earlier, it's funny because even when I have the discussion with folks in the recycling space, and after they chastise us a little bit, say, why isn't it easier, whatever, and then I can tell them, but do you know what our package actually can do? Oh, you begin to, people begin to go, oh, wow, wait, you know what? I do need to look at this a little bit more broadly than just that one part of it.
Yeah. And we hear, recycling's important. Why is recycling important? And if you dig a little bit deeper, people are like, well, because I want to protect the planet. And that's what I can do. And you're like, oh, but there's so much more. Like that's one little thing that you're doing, but you also have to think about the bigger implications, carbon and the full impact and food waste. And you start talking about how food waste, all the emissions that come from that and how we protect that. And it opens people's eyes. They're like, oh, I had no idea. And it's because they have no idea. They just see that one thing that they can touch.
Well,
so interesting.
That plus over the years, as sustainability has become more important in the world, packaging was pointed at as the problem. And it was seen as waste, not seen for the value it provides.
Totally. 100%.
And I know it's not on Tetra Pak to change the world's perception of packaging, but I think we all need to participate in that.
But that's what you just said is the case. It is, though, on us to get others like us to do exactly what you said, because otherwise people just don't get it. And the fact is, you don't want to solve one problem to create another. And that's what can happen. If
unintended
consequences. And look at even with what's gone on with 343. I mean, there are some, as we've even had discussions with some of the folks, we bring up some of the issues and they go, oh, well, we didn't think of that. And I'm not blaming them because we live it. But the fact is you do sometimes have to think of all the other things.
Well, one of the things about packaging, as I've learned in my 40+ year career as a packaging journalist, is it's not hard to understand, but it is complex.
Oh yeah.
That's, one of the examples of how it gets complex, and you do have to think through everything. And again, not to go on to another tangent here, but it's one of the reasons why I think America is moving way too fast with EPR. I think EPR needs a whole lot more discussion, debate, figuring out, because I think as we get into the, it is kind of cool to create an entire industry. It is to be in on the ground floor with, creating something that you hope is going to solve a critical problem. I get that, but I'm just not sold. Just
No, and
not
I
sold.
get it. And look, I do think there is a benefit to have the public-private partnership in making it happen. I mean, I'm not saying, the recycling rates in general in the US are low compared to other developed countries. And so I do think policy can have a benefit, but I do also agree with you in that we got to pump the brakes a little bit. And I think you have to create a forum where everybody gets their input in, and to rush things makes no sense. And I think some
Yeah.
of the stuff has been a little bit rushed, and not whether it's intentionally rushed because it just took so long to write something and it didn't have enough time to be reviewed, but it does, because I agree with you. There's, bad EPR is not going to do any good either.
I love that. That's an excellent quote. Bad EPR isn't going to do it either.
I think the whole comment about the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I mean, that's kind of what it
Yeah.
is. Like the idea, there's a way for it to work.
Yeah.
But if the bills aren't all written right, you can create a lot of challenges, and then you get unintended consequences.
Yep. Well, thank you. I know we got a little
Pleasure.
off
No,
on
no, no.
topic
Happy to
there.
discuss it.
Jason, thank you so much for your explanation and your opinions and your insights. And good luck to Tetra Pak. And Angela, thank you too as well for
You bet.
participating.